In part two of our continuing saga, no, actually, cybercabs are like, again, the biggest deal going. I think it deserves lots of programs on cybercabs in order to keep the stockholders that are watching this show right now informed about what's going to happen in just a few months, Brian. So, are you ready to field a bunch of questions about cybercab?
I am, as you know, have a love-hate relationship with my shares. You could say I have Stockholm syndrome.
Whoa, you've been holding that back on me. You,
No,
oh,
it just came out,
just
man.
oh, like that. Just
Hmm.
okay. Well, with that, we should just end the show. No, okay.
Thank you, everybody. It was great. I appreciate you tuning in.
All right. So tell me what you know about the, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, but we really didn't talk about the impact of the CyberCab body. The fact that it's going to be plastic, polyurethane plastic, injection molded plastic, does that impact the estimates that most of us have been talking about that it'll cost about 16,000 when it gets to fully ramped?
So yesterday you said 16,000. That was the first time I'd heard that specific number.
Okay.
I'd seen 20 and under. We know Tesla likes their 20% margins when they can get them, 25 grand at a 20% margin. Um, but the more you look at it, the more you see potential for cost savings. We can start with, let's not talk about the Cybercab, but the Cybertruck, the Model Y, the previous vehicles, and what they did for cost savings. The reason nobody else did gigacastings before is because if you're only going to make 100,000, a few 100,000, it doesn't make sense. So that first Cybercab is going to cost $20 million or something ridiculous if you were to count the cost of the machines. If you only made 1,000 Cybercabs ever, it would be a financial disaster. But the plan is to make millions and millions, in which case, all of a sudden the numbers look fantastic. Now, we don't know for sure that it is going to have front and rear castings. The current one doesn't because the volume is too low. They wouldn't do that for a prototype. It may not need them, but I assume it will get them. Those castings will save money. But where's your real savings? Well, let's start with the battery. The battery's going to be less than half the size of the one that you have now,
Right.
or about half the size, depending on which model. But you know what I mean. It's going to be a very small battery. We believe under 40 kilowatt hours. We think something more like 35 to 37. It's going to be an LFP battery. That's much cheaper and lasts longer. And then you've got the seats are cheaper. The wiring harness is cheaper. The suspension is cheaper. The tires are a little more expensive because they're made to be cheaper over time, and with efficiencies, aerodynamic drag, rolling resistance, all that. And yes, aero is a consideration in the size and type of wheel that's being used, and the wheel covers, all of that. Well, a wheel cover just costs extra money, weighs extra, right? But the gain is there. And the beauty is that Tesla does plan to own them. If Tesla just planned to sell them, they would have a perverse incentive to make them only last 150,000 miles. But because they plan to own them themselves, they would be crazy to not make them to last 250, 300, 500,000 miles to the point where why replace them at all? Why replace them at all?
Just
Make it
keep things out.
keep replacing the things that break until, I mean, maybe at some point but what makes an old car rickety is all those welds and seams get rickety. I was at the Portland Auto Show over the weekend looking at all these great EVs and cars, really. And the one thing I saw a lot of on first generation cars, we're talking like the Solterra, the Lexus, a lot of the unrefined EVs, is a whole lot of, I don't know what their term for it is, but I'll just call it caulking. It is in the seams, and all of that is to handle NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness. If those weren't there, the car would rattle on day one. Well, no matter how tight you get those tolerances, no matter how good you get that build, those will get worse over time. Cars vibrate a lot. Even a very smooth car will vibrate over its life. That's what happens when you move on roads. If you've got a structural battery pack, structural castings, and then just body panels that mount onto it, you don't have a lot to get loose. And all the parts that can get loose and can rattle and can make it feel and sound old can be tightened with a wrench, as opposed to the frame itself, for which there is no fix. And then the interior, well, you know what? This interior is shot. It's so ratty. It's been through, a million passengers, whatever it's been. Replace it. Pull those seats out. Pull the seats, pull the carpet, replace them. That was with labor and parts, what, $1,000? Now you've got a brand new interior. So I can see this lasting a long time. So to answer the question, 16,000, is it doable? Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it is.
Yeah, because you only got two seats, you only got two doors. I mean, there's
Two
so
windows. Yeah, two hinges.
few
On,
hinges.
yeah, a third if you count the hatch.
Yeah.
You've got three hinges in the entire vehicle. That's none. That is nothing. The hood doesn't open. There's no hood latch. There's no hood mechanism. I don't know if you've ever had a car where the hood spring broke, but when it does, that hood is hard to open. They have to build the spring to last, and it adds weight. It adds complexity. It adds a step in the manufacturing. Any step you can pull out of this means the car is going to come off the line that much quicker.
So then, as a manufacturer who has manufactured both in the United States and in China, I started thinking about this in terms of Chinese manufacturing. It seems to me that this car is not going to cost very much more to make in the United States than it will in China. It's a very small footprint, so you're not going to be spending a lot more for the building, if you will, the overhead in terms of the building. You're going to be unboxing it. You're going to be using Optimus for the things that are not the idea, I think, is to eventually, or maybe right off the kick, have no real labor involved in this. So when we were looking at products that we were like, should we make them in the United States? Should we make them in China? The biggest component, the two biggest components were always labor and packaging. So this has no packaging. So labor becomes the biggest, well, the overhead sometimes was a component, but the labor might be no issue at all. Plastic costs the same in China that it does in the United States. Steel costs the same. Aluminum costs the same. So I'm thinking that maybe it's not really going to make much difference where they make it in terms of what it costs.
So let's talk about what the costs of a car are and why my accountant says we should build in China instead. Well, the labor cost is lower. This is an easy car to build, like you said, but let's look at a hard car to build, a normal car, a GM, a Ford. Something like 6% of the cost of that car is labor. That's already nothing.
Yeah.
So if we're talking a car that's vastly simpler, even if that cost doubled, it's 3% on the purchase price. It's 3% on the cost of goods sold. Not a big deal. What else costs money? It's cheaper to put up a paint shop in China than the US.
But you don't have a paint shop.
No paint shop. So skip it. We're done with that. Well, the space is, I would say, typically cheaper in China. It's not when you're in the industrial districts. Those zones are quite expensive. So already in China, you're really not saving on the land. But what if you got a sweetheart deal, made it a really good deal? You don't need that much land, like you said. And in terms of the raw materials, yes, steel costs the same everywhere, except the freight doesn't. And China doesn't have steel. They import their steel. From where? Well, Pittsburgh in part. So that's one thing. They would be able to make a small savings there that might offset the labor. And then, of course, you've got the power cost. Factories are very thirsty and they consume a lot of juice. And some countries will subsidize the power for industrial sectors just to grow the base. China does that. But the power is only a little bit cheaper. And you'd said on yesterday's show, we were talking about it, and you said, well, put up solar panels, and now it doesn't matter what the cost is. Yeah, put up solar panels, and you are your own utility, at least in part. And unlike a data center, a factory like this isn't going to use quite as much electricity, I think. So can you build it anywhere? Yes, cost effectively. So you could build it somewhere expensive. I wouldn't put the factory in Hong Kong, but just about anywhere else. I mean, even in the suburbs of Paris, it would be cost effective to build a factory like this. I'm not recommending that. Don't do that. But I'm saying in terms of cost, you could do it. Um, because I don't know if you know, but the labor laws in France dictate that optimists can only work 35 hours a week.
Probably. And they have to have 5 weeks of vacation in August.
Optimus needs to be powered down for 5 weeks a year. It's just how it goes. So, no, but there are going to be any, these will be built in the markets for which they are designed. If China ever approves FSD, oh wait, that's rolling out
Maybe
now.
now.
Right now we are seeing it appears to be rolling out. That means it would make sense to build a CyberCab factory in China. I believe it will make sense to build one in Europe. I believe it obviously makes sense to build one in North America. If the cross-border trade becomes difficult, it might make sense to make one in at 𝐑𝐚𝐬𝐝𝐿eon to serve the Mexican and Latin American markets and South America. That would make it that would give an opportunity to, yes, build them anywhere, and the cost would be pretty roughly equal.
Over the weekend, in addition to all the rest of the amazing news that we had that didn't move the market, move the stock, one of the things that we heard was that there's hiring taking place for the CyberCab. I mean, since the ads for the employees said CyberCab on them, it was pretty easy to figure out. Uh,
It's a subtle clue, Randy,
so
but
what does that mean for you? What does that mean for you in terms of the timing of first outs?
so I saw that post as well, and I don't remember who it was. One of the bigger names on X who I respect said, guys, this doesn't mean they're making them today. If
Right.
you look at the Cybertruck posts, those were a good 6 months before early production and really a year before volume production. You need to get those people in, especially on something that's all new. The whole philosophy of the assembly line is new. Uh, so, what does that mean to me? Nothing. It means we're still on the same course we thought we were a week ago. If we hadn't seen it, maybe that would be cause for concern. This to me is a mild reiteration of the expected targets, but really, Ashok is the only person I can think of who actually knows the likelihood of a June launch. I think more than Elon, the AI team are the ones who actually are in the driver's seat.
So
But they don't have a wheel, Randy.
I see.
But
Okay.
but
Yes. So Elon told Uber, sorry, not interested. I
I
saw
think that story got a little blown out of proportion. I think, uh, yeah, that he went to Tesla and said, "Hey, can we get in on the Austin early launch?" And Tesla said, "Absolutely not. The early launch, no. A future partnership, maybe, but not on the pilot. We're not doing it on the pilot." And if you read the actual quotes, it was something like, "In Austin, we will be competitors."
Hmm.
But I don't think that that's necessarily going to be always true. But I know you and I and a number of other serious people, not that you and I are serious, Randy, but in terms of analysis, we absolutely are very serious. I know a lot of us have said Tesla will employ their mountain of cash to keep as much of this product in-house as they can feasibly do. That doesn't mean they'll be able to do it all the time. Um, but think how much money NVIDIA would have if they didn't sell their chips and only leased their compute. They would have more. Um, but what they wouldn't have had was the ability to afford to keep those chips in house. And I think based on the numbers we crunched yesterday, this ramp will happen slowly enough that if it takes 6 months or 12 months to equal the cost of a new car, and I think 6 months based on Tesla's in-house cost, that means that after uh, almost immediately, they would be in a situation where they could double their fleet every 6 months just on revenue, just on new revenue. Um, and so, well, yeah, but going from 1,000 to 2,000 is not exciting, right? Do the exercise where you double a penny every day for a month and remind me how it ends. So, this yeah, is I don't know how interested they will be to sell them out of network. We know that Elon has reiterated they intend to do so for you and I to buy one for ourselves to put on the network. I don't know how that will work. Um, but I would say their first and primary objective is to keep as many in-house as possible.
So the theory right today is that this is launched in Austin, but there has been a little bit of, let's say, energy around the Elon Musk brand and therefore the Tesla brand, some negative energy
Mm-hmm.
uh, over the last couple of 3 months. And so some people are worried today. I saw a couple of posts on X. They're worried about the launch in Austin being
Mm.
the only liberal city in Texas, I think. That maybe there could be damage to cars, there could be
Mm.
people standing in the way of cars, there could be
Mm.
people refusing to take the cars in the same numbers that they would, let's say, in Dallas. What do you think about that? Should they move the launch to another city?
No, let's go one point at a time. The first thing to remember is you don't mess with Texas. So, will they decline to take them? Not a problem. It's not on the Uber app. You will only get, you'll only order one if you knew what you were ordering in advance. The numbers will be sufficient. They will, because even if 20, 30, 50% of people refuse, you still have access to 50% of the market. That
Right.
is adequate for a test launch and really to operate profitably overall. If I told you you have access to 50% of the TAM, you would be tap dancing in the streets.
Really?
Um, People blocking them, I don't see it happening because Texas is badass. And if you want to go out and stand in traffic and be a jackass, the Tesla will not hit you. But Dave over here might.
Right.
Dave over here might say, "Oh, I've been waiting for this all week." Uh, and it's an open, I don't know if it's an open carry state, but I mean, there's a lot of guns in Texas. And if, yeah, there's a reason road rage should be something that no one engages in is you don't know who's armed. Little old ladies are armed. My mom was a little old lady who was armed. And if you wanted to road rage at her, she would brandish. I can say that now. She has passed and it's no longer, it's probably outside of the, window of prosecution anyhow. The statute of limitations has certainly expired, but my mom would brandish. So don't engage in, don't play stupid games is I guess my lesson there. And I don't see a reason to move it. Um, it will work. If the network works, it will work in Austin.
Okay.
And I know that you and I have different opinions on what constitutes the basis for the rage, but I welcome you to replicate the hand gesture right now on the channel and just show us for clarification because there's nothing to be offended about.
We're not going to go there, Brian. I'll let you do that on you can do that on your channel
You're going to do that? All right.
we'll do that on your channel. Okay, so now we talked yesterday a lot about the cost.
Yes.
And you were much higher than me. You thought it was going to cost more than 25 cents a mile.
Hmm.
But if we get into volume, and we're going to be talking about China and India. So if we're in China or India and we get the cost per mile down to the 25-cent level, which is what I talked about, which would maybe make it profitable at 40 cents a mile in terms of revenue. But I know Kathy would, again, I think she's got it at 12 and selling for 25 cents a mile in China and in India. Do you think it's going to be successful at those kind of price points?
Okay. I don't know what fares cost in those countries, so I don't have a good starting point for the discussion. But 12 cents, I don't understand how. Well, her saying you would sell it for 25 cents and make good money, I don't see how that's possible. I don't know how you get insurance that cheap. In India, I don't know what the insurance requirements are. In China, I know there is already competition. There's already self-driving companies that have cars out 100% self-driving.
Yeah, right,
Uh,
right, right.
yeah, I mean,
With help, yes.
right. supervised. To what degree, we are not as clear, but they are operating. So yeah, again, I don't believe you need to be the best price in town, and I don't think you should. I think you should be the best price you can get. I think there should still be surge pricing. I think that you should be, if you want to be cheaper, don't go more than 5%, 10% cheaper. I think that is a good limit. Um, and I haven't been to India. I would love to go. Uh, I've heard mixed reviews, but because if Tesla's going to be building outside of Mumbai, I would like to go. So if anyone's in India and would like to help me get that sorted out in terms of ground logistics and all that, it's the kind of place you need a guide, a helping hand who knows the lay of the land.
Sure.
I'd be interested in doing that next year. And I will be in China in April for the Shanghai Auto Show. I'll be coming back with fresh reports for you, Randy.
All right, cool. I'll enjoy that for sure. All right, so those are my main questions because, I've never really, I've said repeatedly on the show, I don't really care if they have any CyberCab business in China. I'll be very happy if they get 25% of the US and Europe. That would be fine.
I'd say I would be giddy if they had 25% of the US or Europe.
Or Europe, yeah.
Or, I mean, those are big, big markets.
Big markets, yes. So yeah, that would be big, big money. It would be huge amounts of profit. So, China would be a nice, uh, icing on the cake. According to Brian Wong, who knows a little bit more about it and studied it deeply, he's not even 100% sure that Tesla could run their own fleets there. It may have to be other like Baidu and others. And apparently Baidu is quite interested in running Teslas in China. So it may require a different fleet manager, if you will, in China. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that works out.
I see huge win scenarios, and I see the opposite of that being small win scenarios. I don't see losing scenarios.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, that answers all my other questions. The ones that I didn't ask yesterday. If you didn't watch the show yesterday, I'll put the card up so that you can go check that one out because we really got into the nitty gritty of costs and the new materials that are being used and how that works and everything. Brian, as always, we appreciate you coming on and straightening me out. And we'll probably do it again next week, barring unforeseen developments or the creek rising. It's great talking to you.